Welcome back, everybody. Backyard Mechanic coming back to you with another repair job. Today, I'm working on a 2006 Toyota Camry with a 3.3 liter engine, and I will be showing you how to replace a starter. Okay, everybody, so I'm starting here from putting the starter back on. And this is a Toyota, a 2006 Toyota Camry with a 3.3 liter engine in it. And the starter actually went out on it. Well, the starter was going out on it. Sometimes it would start, sometimes it get hot, wouldn't start. So my camera actually wasn't working or charged. So I'm going to show you how to put the starter back on, and taking it off is just be the opposite. You just do in reverse. So hang in there with me. Here's the brand new starter sitting up here, and on the Toyotas the starter sits on top of the transmission here instead of under the bottom, so ain't no jacking up and putting on the jack stands and nothing. Just moving a few things out the way, taking out a few bolts and tighten them back up. So this is the spot where the starter bolts go right here. And this is where the starter go in this spot down here. So let's go ahead and place the starter there. As you see, it's a brand new starter. I'm gonna take off this paper here and this right here. Move that to the side. And what we want to do is we want to move any wires or anything that's in the way and match the starter back up. Bam, in place like so. And then you want to take the bolts for the starter, which are 14 millimeter bolts. So we want to take the starter bolts and put them in place where they go. Is two, one on each side, and they are 14 millimeter bolts. So we want to take that and just put them in, start them by hand. Okay, so we got one started. Okay, so what I did on both sides was I screwed the bolts down by hand to that flush. You see right there. And this bolt here. That bolt there. That's the second bolt. And that's the first bolt. I tighten it down to the flush. And then I'm going to take my torque wrench. And on my torque wrench, we want to set it to in between 25 and 27 foot-pounds. So I got my torque wrench set to 27 foot-pounds. And that's what we want to torque the starter bolts down to. So I got the torque wrench on there and I'm tightening it. And you want to turn it until you hear a click. I don't know if y'all can hear that click, but it's clicked right there. So that means it's torqued down. I've already torqued down the other side here. So both bolts are torqued. Next, we'll start reconnecting the wires and replacing everything here all the way to the battery, and then we'll test it and make sure that it starts. Now we got the starter back on and the starter bolts tightened down, Now we want to replace the wire that runs from the battery cable to the starter here. And the way the starter cable is made, if you see right there, it's bent a certain way. So once you put this cable onto the starter, it only goes on a certain way and it sits right there. So once you tighten it, it'll be in the correct position that it needs to be in and that it was on before you took it off. And also it won't move once you put the nut back on it. And you want to replace the nut. The nut for it is a 12mm nut. And this wire usually has a rubber boot right here to cover it, so that way it prevents any moisture or any unwanted connection to ground, and prevents a lot. So we want to tighten it up. Now this nut is possibly only no more than about 10 foot-pound in torque, so I'm not gonna really put the torque wrench on it. I'm gonna do it by hand and just tighten it up. Like so. Let's tighten it up a little bit by hand. It doesn't have to be real tight. Like I said, no more than about 10 foot-pounds. Then you want to replace the boot. Okay, so now we have that wire. There is another connector that goes here. Okay, so you have to remove this connector too as well. And this is the connector. And it's a push button, so you can push it and pull it out. But in my case, I'm just going to slide it back in place till it clicks. There. So now that we have that, only other thing is to go and start putting everything back together from where we removed it, and then we'll test start it. So we had to remove this part right here, which is part of the breather housing. And so it sits here and it bolts up to the frame here. As you see, I put my bolts back in place when I remove them. I usually sit them back in place so that way I won't have to worry about losing them or where I put them and all this other good stuff. So pretty much what we want to do is set this back in place. And at the bottom here, bottom of this, it goes here into this reservoir. So you want to make sure you put that back into the reservoir like so. It sits like that. And you can take the bolt here, which this is a 10mm bolt. Put it in place like that. And that's how you have that there. Next, what I want to do, there's a brace that goes here that holds, a brace that goes right here that holds the air box. So you want to take that and put it back, and those are only 10mm bolts. So I'm going to put those down, make sure we got them in position, and then just hand tighten them, and then tighten them down. Once again, everything has a torque spec, but this is just a brace to hold the air box, so I'm just going to tighten them down, maybe like 10-15 foot-pounds, and call it a day. And there is a little hook on this brace right here on the side, so it'll go right back in place where it needs to be. And these are 10mm. Just gonna tighten it down. Don't have to be a hole. Don't have to be real tight. Like I said, it's only there for the air box to sit on, the air filter box. So there you have it. Now that's just in place. Now the next thing we want to do, we want to take the air box and we want to set the air box back in place. And then the air box comes with a couple of screws down at the bottom. It's like 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, and they're 10 millimeters as well. So we're going to set the air box back in place, and it goes in place like this. But make sure you got your ground wire out the way, so that way it'll go. Now, remember this hose here? It connects into your air box right here on the side. So make sure that goes back in. Okay, I had to set the camera down. I had to use 2 hands. But the air box is down back in place. What I do is put the screws back in it. You see right here where this the breather hose that we first put in, it goes down and under there, it goes in there. And make sure you put that back in place. Then you want to take your screws, once again, which are 10 millimeters, and put them back in. Okay. And you take your 10 millimeter and tighten them down. Once again, you don't need no more than about 10 foot-pounds of pressure, because these screws only hold the air box, the air filter box, so it doesn't require a whole lot of tightening. So it don't require a whole lot of tightening. So now that is tight, they're tightened. Now we got the air box back in place and I'll tighten up. And then next we have the air filter. I'll put the air filter back in, set it in place. Then we have the top of the air filter box that you want to put in place. This is the top of the air filter box, and it just sits down there like so. You have to make sure you connect the hose back here to here and tighten that back up. And so the air box will slide here into these slots. There's one slot here, one slot there, and then you got screws here on the side that you're tighten down with your 10 millimeter, and one goes here. And once you tighten those down, then you add the rest of the air filter box. Since I got one hand and I'm trying to hold the camera, I'm gonna set the camera down and get the air box set in the correct place. So I got the top of the air filter box on, and there's a screw here. It's a 10 millimeter, and then on the opposite side, there's another screw here, which is also a 10 millimeter. Another 10 millimeter. So we're gonna tighten both of these screws down, and then we'll finish connecting it. So I'm tightening now, and it don't take a lot. You don't have to tighten it too tight. Let's tighten the other screw. Okay, now I have both screws tight. There is a connector here that goes to the mass airflow sensor that we had to disconnect. And once again, you just want to reconnect it. And to remove it, it's just simply pressing here and pulling it off. And then you want to replace it, push it till it clicks. Next, we have vacuum lines, and usually your car will come with a diagram of how your vacuum lines go. So this is the diagram, and we have vacuum lines that connects to the side of the air breather box here. So we want to connect those because we had to remove those hoses, and there's two. There's two that's coming from the back. Two that's coming from the back there. One right there, and one right here that's going under the manifold right here. We want to connect those two back. Connect this one here. At the bottom. Connect that one right there at the bottom, and then we're going to take this one right here, and we want to connect it at the top here. Okay. Just simply slide them on. So we got that one here. We got more vacuum hoses. There's one go here, and it comes to here and here. So there's one here. You got four. One here, and two here. Which there are two more vacuum lines right here that I moved them out the way. But there are two that goes here. So this vacuum line here is coming from the bottom. This one connects here. The second one connects here. And then you got this hose right here that connects from here to here. Simple. So now you got all the vacuum hoses connected. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Also, you have a sensor that's on the end of the air filter box right here, and you want to reconnect that because you had to disconnect that too to take that off. So it's simple as pushing it in, same as the other ones. You just hold it and pull. If you see here on the other side, it's a push button right there. So you push that and pull, and then when you push it back, just push it in until it clicks. Okay. Then we have this right here, which is the plate that the battery sit in. It just pretty much sits down like so at the bottom where the battery sits. So it sits in place right there where the battery sits. And then we have the little air scoop that goes on the end of the air filter box right here. This right here, it's air scoop. And it's as simple as put it right there. And make sure your lines are on the right side. Yeah, sit it right there. Put your vacuum hoses back in place here. Bam. It has 2 screws. Once again, I always put my screws back in place so that way I know where they're at. And they're 10 millimeters. Just place one there. And then there's one here on the other side here. And you just tighten it down with a 10 millimeter. And it don't need to be a whole lot of pressure. There. Okay, so now we got the starter back on with the bolts torqued. We done put the air filter box back on and placed everything, connected everything back to it. We put the battery tray back at the bottom. And one more thing right here, where it connects to the breather hose right here. You want to make sure you tighten this up, which is a 10 millimeter. And also, you don't have to tighten it very tight. Just tight enough to keep this little hose from coming. I use a 10 millimeter, but at the end of the bolt, it also you can also use a screwdriver, a Phillips screwdriver. So now we got everything in place. Only thing left to do now is put the battery in and see if she'll start. We tighten up the cables down. The nuts are 10 millimeters, the positive and negative. We made sure they're tight, no more than 10 pounds of foot pressure. Make sure the cables don't move. What we did was we put the starter in. We made sure we torqued the bolts down to 27 foot-pounds. Then we replaced the air filter box. Connected all the connectors. Connected all the vacuum lines back. And put the battery in. So now what we'll do is we're gonna go in here and see if she'll start. Okay, so now we're in the car. We got the battery in and everything. Let's see if she will start. Okay, it started. So that's how you replace a starter. Now, all you have to do is watch the video in reverse. Do everything in reverse. And you can get it done. It's a very simple job. It's not hard. Toyota could have done the best thing they ever could have done was by putting that starter on the top. That way you don't have to jack the car up. No jack stands, no caulk in the tires. Simply just pull out the battery, pull out the air box, the air filter box, disconnect the 2 power connections, unscrew the 2 14 millimeter bolts, and pull the starter out. Okay, so if you like the contents that I put out and you enjoyed the video and if it was helpful, give me a thumbs up and continue to follow me by hitting that like, that subscribe, and the notification bell. And thank you for watching.